Hi there, Pete Scargill. If you've read the blog at TechScargill.net, you'll know I've been messing around with uninterruptible power supplies, and this is the second video on the subject, just to bring you up to speed with where we are with the board. And so over to the board. Okay, so let's take a look at the UPS in its current form. A couple of items should be familiar to you. Over at the top there we have a DHT22, then there's a piezo element there which is going to be replaced by one of those little black speakers. So let's take a look at the main board. So what we have here, over on the right we've got a couple of lines going off to the microprocessor, pi or whatever it is, plus and minus. We have a lead here which goes to a port bit on the processor, again Raspberry Pi, we'll call it Raspberry Pi for the sake of it, which is the warning line which goes low to say it's time for you to shut down now and the Pi needs to respond accordingly. The main board itself, just this underlying board here with a couple of modules sitting on the top. We have a kind of nano type board here with the lead carved off. I didn't want to use any unnecessary power. That is an Atmega 328 based board, one of these cheapies you see for a pound or so from Alibaba and Banggood, etc. Then you have a combined charging circuit and 5-volt booster. These are normally separate boards, but I just happen to have one that was handy in one board, and it claims to be able to charge it at 1 amp. So 3 buttons, an SSD 1306 OLED I2C display. This is a MOSFET. It's way overkill for what we need. It just happened to be one I had lying around, and a couple of resistors. Now if you look at the display here, one of the things you'll see is the battery voltage. You know, you may have a slightly varying power supply here. I use the internal 1-volt reference in the Atmega for voltage measurement. So the Atmega can only measure 1 volt. So I've got a resistive divider down to ground. The input there goes to the battery positive output. And so they divide down the voltage. Now they're not precision resistors, there's no need for them to be, because I can calibrate that value in software of an ordinary multimeter. So let's dig in and have a look at the menu. So the bottom line there that currently shows the amount of days and time that the board's been on and the days and time that it's been off. I can set the high voltage and the low voltage. Let's talk about those before we go any further. HV and low V. There they are there. So this is built-in hysteresis, which is very important. Imagine you've lost power to the board and the battery is slowly starting to go downhill. At some point, that will be that voltage there, although this is entirely arbitrary. At some point you want to warn the processor to turn off, give it time to turn off, and then take its power away, which you do with the MOSFET. So that's at that voltage there. Typically you would actually make that a bit higher. That voltage there, the unit decides to shut down the processor. It then sits and does nothing except obviously charge until the voltage creeps up to 7.3. Now imagine you didn't do that, and there are boards out there that don't. Voltage is 3.1. As soon as you take the load off the battery, which incidentally is on the underside of here, actually there it is. So as soon as you take the load off this unit, the battery is going to start to recover, because that's what batteries do, and the voltage is going to go high. So the last thing you want is for the unit to go, oh well, I'll turn the output back on. So what it actually does is it waits until it sees the battery at this state, again arbitrary value, and then it turns the output on. So let's have a look at the other commands, plenty of them. Startup time, if everything's working, how long before it switches to the standby mode, 5 seconds, how long it stays in standby mode, in other words to give the Pi time to shut down. If it's in off mode and it sees the voltage go up, how long does it wait before it does something about it? Battery offset -10, I mentioned that before. You can alter this. So if we adjust the battery offset up, notice the battery voltage itself going up there. I'll just knock that back down again. Alright, so if these resistors prove to not give you an accurate battery measurement, you can just tweak that. Warning tone, that little beeper up there, you can specify 500 Hz, 1.5 kHz, etc., or nothing. Serial monitor on and off. The serial on this board can send out regular JSON data, or turn it off if you like. The watchdog, this is an additional function. The Pi or whatever can send a signal regularly back to this board, and if it doesn't within a certain time that was specified there, the board will turn the power off and turn it back on so as to reset everything. Log period, that's for logging data, which I will show you shortly. Temperature warning, if you do bother with this temperature sensor at 40 degrees, you can have it beep for you. A version number, and that's it. Now, I said there were some overrides. One of the things I can do here is I can simulate the battery being down. If I hold that down, battery is down to next to nothing, so this device is now going to go into timeout mode, and it doesn't matter if the battery recovers, it's going to shut off now. So in 16 seconds, 15, etc., etc. It's already warned the Pi to shut down. By now it will have done so gracefully. And of course it's going to shut down, but as the battery's in such good nick, it's now warming up again, and in a few seconds it will turn the Pi back on. And there it is on. There may of course be times when you deliberately want to shut everything down, and you can do it by holding that button down, and it will say going into shutdown mode. It will again warn the Pi and shut off and stay off until you hit that button again. And finally, there's a very simple graphing function here which shows you, when I was playing around before there and I pretended that the battery was flat, where you can see it there. I've done it twice recently. You can see the battery voltage going down and then slowly coming back up again. This is just to give a quick impression of how the battery's been doing. And again, you can set the polling rate for that in the menu. I've got it set to seconds. You can have it set to every 15 minutes if you want. It's not clever, it's just a simple display. And so that's it. It works. I've been playing around with this with it attached to Pi, shutting it down, starting it up again, shutting it down, starting it up again. Been absolutely fine. That's the board in its current iteration. We've done another version of this, which if you've read the blog you'll realize has 2 booster circuits, and we've actually had a board made for that. We expect to get it tomorrow. We'll get that built up and I'll show you that board, but this is something that most people should be able to knock up for themselves. Alright, there it is.